traveling at all, he also focuses.
I only have 4 pages here, so I won't read them. I will put on my glasses so I can just kind of see the highlights on them. The first thing everybody knows about Jim is he loved his family. Hold that microphone.
Yeah, he loved his family. Jim loved his family. That's the first thing that everybody knows. Had the 2 girls around for a long time, and then all of a sudden Jamie came along, his son. And that was, he was so thrilled with his family. Loved his family. We always knew that. He talked about them all the time. Second thing about him personally was he loved baseball. It was the most important thing to him, other than his family, was teaching young guys how to play. And he loved to show us how to field. You know, Jim was probably 40 years old at the time, I guess. But he'd get on third base and have us hitting balls to show the third baseman how to field. And same thing with second, first, everything else. Jim also liked to pitch batting practice. Now, you can imagine we're 4'6" and 5 feet tall, and Jim was 5'7", 5'8", throwing heat to us. So a lot of us were afraid, you know, initially when he was pitching to us, but it was a blast. I have to say that you know, his wife Fanny was right there with us all the time. She was with us all the time. She kept score of a lot of games. It's funny, my mom didn't know a lot about baseball when I was playing. My brother played before me, Brother Jim, but she'd go to games but didn't really know what was happening. But when we were playing, when I was 12, she'd watch what Miss Carter and Fanny did, and if they yelled or cheered, she'd do the same thing. By the end of the season, she knew what was going on, so that was fun. You know, Mom ended up having great friendships out of that season. 2 in particular, Miss Carter, Jen Carter, and the other was Pretty Kitty, Johnny, your mom. And they were very close until she passed away. So, let's see, we got the coach as the teacher. So this is where he's fielding for us, he's pitching for us, he's showing everybody how to play baseball, how to be a good fielder, good hitter, good teammate. Jim had ulcer surgery before the 1963 season. So initially when we heard about it, we didn't know if he was coming back or not. Of course, the Tigers won the city championship in '62, so we were expecting to have a good team in '63 also. But initially, I didn't think Jim would pick me because I used to come to the park when I was 9, 10 years old with Tony Wright, my brother-in-law Robert's youngest brother. And Carl Dove was coaching the White Sox, and you know, I was pretty sure that Carl was going to pick me when I was 10. Well, he didn't, Jim did, and I was scared to death. We knew that Jim was a coach that drove for perfection. No errors, like we were saying earlier. Got to know what's happening in the game. So the guy's on third with 2 outs. What do you do with the ball when it's hit to you? If he's on third with 1 out, what do you do with the ball? So he taught us all the strategy. We knew how to play ball. We did great. Some of his coaching results: the '57 city champions, the '62 city champions, beating the Cubs. Were any Cubs here from the '62 team? No? Okay. at least 2. They had a great team, so we were fortunate to win.
57.
57. Oh, yeah. Mom's here from 57. Wow.
57, all the way back here.
Great. And then, of course, the '63 team, and they've already been recognized, so I'm not going to say anything about that. You know, all of us that played for Jim heard about the guys that played for him in the past. And I've got a few names on here. I'm sure I'm going to forget hundreds. But the ones he used to talk about were Jasper Wheeler, Algie Green, Rudy Hester, Mike Hamilton, Tim Jackson. Those were kind of legendary guys to us. We wanted to be able to play as well as they did, so that was our focus. You know, the '63 team, like we said, almost made the World Series. I was on the mound that day, and the first guy up was the pitcher. His name was Mike Smiley. I have a memory for all this stuff. And I smoke him with a fastball, and he gets a double. So the next guy up is a catcher, Nolan Anderson. He's a left-handed batter. And I blow the fastball almost past him, but he hits it 300 feet over the fence, left field fence. So first inning, we're down 2-0. Now, prior to that, we had been the home team in all the games that we'd won up to that point. And when they flipped the coin that day, we were the visitors. That's the first time that happened. We didn't think that it was a bad omen, because when you're 10, 12 years old, you don't pay attention to that stuff. You know, I do have to talk to Mark about this. He had a small error in his article on Tuesday that I wanted to address. He knows what I'm going to say, so it's okay. But before, actually, I'm going to make that last, because that's going to lead right into the next speaker. I'll come back to that. Does anybody remember how, when Jim would stand behind the pitcher, we were having practice games, and there was a strike? Does anybody remember how he called it? Strike two. Yeah. Strike eight. Yeah. That's cool. No, there wasn't any laughing. And if you look at team pictures, I mean, nobody's smiling ever. The all-star teams, the Tigers, we never smiled because we were seeking perfection. 3 or 4 hour practices. I think Bobby mentioned to me last night. Of course, Bob lived close by, and he'd come by the park. We'd be practicing. He'd go play for a couple hours, go back, we'd be practicing. So if anybody wondered why the Tigers were so good, because we either played or practiced 6 days a week. And we all obviously learned a lot, and it showed in our results. Jim also, when he's hitting infield practice, you know, a lot of the balls in Little League are hit pretty slow. Jim hit them as hard as he could. So you learned how to field a ball that was coming at you 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And so that was cool. That got us prepared. I was at the water fountain. We'd beaten the National League, yeah. Dow, you here? Dow Stevens. I saw you. There you are back there. Yeah, 63 national team had a really good team, too. But we were fortunate to beat them. Well, our next game up was against Greenup. And they had a young pitcher named Don Gullett. There he is again. Now, Don, we were at the water fountain down here, and he had on his all-star cap, and we had on ours. And I asked him, I said, who's your best pitcher? He said, I am. And he was right. He was absolutely right. I think through my career, I ended up being like 0-10 against him, 0-for-10, 0 batting average. He never walked me, though, so I just got the K's there for the most part. When I faced him at Babe Ruth time in high school, his slider was as hard as his fastball. I couldn't tell the difference when they were coming in. I was swinging at everything anyway, usually late. However, I do want to say, as far as his fastball goes, Bill Lynch had a faster fastball. He did. Bill could smoke the ball, man. Also, some of you that were on the trip that we got to make, you remember the dormitory at UK? Stayed in the dorm. Ate at the hospital, the Albert B. Chandler Medical Center, the new one. And the bus trip to Norfolk. And there was a baseball field there that we got to play on. And the first game we played Florida, they had won their district. Actually, after we won the state, we won a 5-team tournament after that. So we're playing Florida, and we got a guy named Rick Scott pitching against us. I was in Sarasota 15 years ago. I checked the phone book, couldn't find him. And we had a guy named Mike Griffith pitching for us. 2 guys are 6 feet tall in Little League. Now, if any of you watch the series this year, there's 6'3" and 6'4" guys. But that was pretty amazing. They both threw sidearm, so you had about a quarter of a second to fall down and get out of the batter's box so you didn't get hit or make a swing. And, of course, Mike won that game 2-0. We were fortunate to get a couple of home runs, and that was it. I mean, there was like 3 hits in the whole game, and 2 of them went over the fence. One of the things we talked about, and Johnny, you should remember this, and the other guys on the team, okay, when we win this next game, how are we going to get to Williamsport? Are we going to be able to fly? Because none of us had ever flown before. So we were talking about that, and then, of course, it didn't happen. So, but the main thing is there was so much camaraderie among our group. All the guys really, I won't say love, but we really cared for each other, wanted everybody to do well, tried to help everybody do well. So there's, I'm almost finished here. I don't know how much time I had. I like to talk, as you can tell. I got a few closing comments. I wanted to mention some of the other people that helped us out in the American League, and I've got some names on here. It's not going to be all of them, so I apologize for any that I might forget. But anybody remember Clyde Chin? He was the umpire. And Clyde was a good one. He was. I mean, he let you know if it was a strike or ball. Ollie Craig also was an umpire. And his nephew was on our Tigers team. So we were hoping he'd show up today, but he didn't make it. Some of the coaches, I mentioned Carl Doe with the White Sox. We had Glenn Judd with the Yankees. Bill Johnson, David Webb were with the Indians. Chick Thomas with the Angels. And George Reif was with the Orioles, and George was our assistant coach. So he was at all of our games as well in the All-Star team. I have to mention how much respect I had for the Wright players. W-R-I-G-H-T. My brother-in-law Robert played for Ashland, and he started as a ninth grader, and that's when he was still in junior high. Started as catcher. Robert was the best ball player I ever saw personally. I saw him hit one over the sidewalk down here one time, batting left-handed. I saw him hit the street, batting right-handed out here. He was a great catcher. When he was in the military, he was on the team, military team that won the All-European Championship, and his picture was on the cover of Stars and Stripes, where they were throwing out a guy at third base. My former brother-in-law, he passed away 2 years ago. Miss him. Still talk to him. But he had two brothers, too. A younger brother, Gary Wright. Any of you guys play with Gary? He was kind of in the in-between time. Gary was an excellent player. He ended up playing for Center College. Very successful in life. We got a nice little press box up here named for his dad that Gary funded. So that was terrific. But Gary wanted to be as good as Robert. And Tony, the youngest, the one I knew and hung out with, tried to be as good as Gary. So it was great that family was involved. TR, the father, was an umpire at a lot of our games in junior Legion and Babe Ruth. So he was great too. I have to give very special thanks to my brother Jim. Where are you, Jim? Right here. Yeah, he's trying to hide over here. Jim taught me to throw breaking balls with this finger up, which worked really well in Little League. It didn't work after that. But had a big old roundhouse curve, and then not a slider, a drop. It actually came in and went down. So that was tough to hit. So Jim, thanks for spending all those hours out in the yard with me, catching me. Jim, getting back to Jim, he had such a positive impact on everybody that played for him. He taught us respect all players on your team or other teams. Didn't make any difference. Always play fair, and to never curse. Never heard Jim curse, and all the time I was around him, so none of us obviously would do that either. And be responsible to ourselves and our teammates. So he was a great leader, both for times in the past, back in the 60s, and he would have been today as well. And he loved working with the kids in baseball. I want to go back to one other thing I skipped, and then I'll be finished. Getting back to Mark's article, the minor error. It's very, very minor. He said something about, let's see where it is. There we go. That I caught fire that year, and I did. I mean, I had a great year. Nothing before that, not much after that. He said after not starting the two previous years, what he didn't remember, probably nobody else did, is the 62 Tigers, which we won city championship, first game, I got a first baseman's mitt on, I'm playing first base. After the first inning, I had 2 errors, so I hit the bench for the rest of the year. And a young guy named Bo Carter, a 10-year-old, took over first base, and that's where he used to play the rest of the year. So Bo's our next speaker, but Jim brought us all together as Ashland American, and what a fabulous time it was. And let me say hi to Bo here. Come on up, Bo.